So we are back to talk about some more Watchmen, and Preston, I have to say, I'm thoroughly surprised. There are a lot of people contacting me lately, wondering where the next Watchmen podcast episode is, and I was like,
See, it's like it's like it grows on them, just like Watchmen grew on you, and I mean, it's funny how after the first few episodes came out, there was a lot of this social warrior, like political warrior, like those SJWs, and now like it's been like a general consensus is now spread that Watchmen is pretty awesome.
I've been recommending Watchmen to a lot of people lately, and I have even said, like, even though it's not much of a comparison, but I think this season of Watchmen is better than the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, and we fucking do Game of Thrones content.
It's head and shoulders better than Game of Thrones.
And we do Game of Thrones content. We fucking do this fucking.
I know. The question is like, do I love this more than say I like The Leftovers? And I have to wait until the last episode. There's certain strengths to The Leftovers that Watchmen doesn't have, but I need to see the next episode now. What's going to happen, and like all the detail and all of the commentary on society. Like Watchmen has just a lot more going on than Leftovers. Leftovers is more emotional. It's acted really well, but it's not as rich as Watchmen.
No. Of course.
You never, even though you never watched Leftovers, did you?
I have not yet.
I mean, you have HBO. You can just do it. You can binge it.
What? I have HBO. Oh, right. Yes, I have HBO. Right.
I'm sorry.
Could totally binge it.
All right. Okay. Continue on. On we go.
So Watchmen episode 7. Let's start with that. Angela continues to be treated for nostalgia as her memories of losing her parents and her grandmother June in Vietnam mingle with Will's. She also learns that the Manhattan phone booths are supposedly connected to Mars, route True's facilities, before True herself reveals that she knows that Manhattan is actually on Earth in Tulsa, disguised as a human, which I thought Dr. Manhattan couldn't disguise himself as a human or act like a human. And we find out that the cavalry's plan is to capture and destroy Manhattan to become like him, which True already knows, and that is why the Millennium Clock is there, because she plans on using it to save the world. Angela breaks free, rushes home, and tells Cal that she loves him as a husband, calling him by the name of John, before she bashes his head in and pulls out a small dish-shaped, like Manhattan symbol from his head, and then his body starts to glow blue. Now here's the thing, before I continue on with this, because this is the Wikipedia synopsis here of episode 7. You were right, and you were wrong at the same time. So...
Okay, what was I read about?
So... You were right that Lady True's daughter was a clone, but what you're wrong about is you thought it was a clone of her. It's not. It's a clone of her mother.
Right. I'm still holding out hope that she's also a clone as well. Like, she did say that she's a clone of her mother, but I wonder if she left out that she's also a clone of her mother. I'm still holding out hope. But it was weird. Yeah, it's a little weird to skip the generation like that, but she did. Mm-hmm. But then the question is, I mean, maybe it's, she skipped the generation, but she also, we want to find out who the father is, and we don't know who that is.
Mm-hmm. As for, so people were messaging me the entire time when episode 7 came out. Carmine, you called it. How did you know? It's just, like I said, I went on the Watchmen Wikipedia page, and at the very fucking, at the cast right here, you have all these people. By the way, they just updated it recently, but you only had 4 people on here. You had Laurie Blake, Judd, Angela, and her husband Cal. And for some and why would Cal be there? Like, he's a character, but he's not even, I don't even consider him secondary character, would you? Like,
you're right that he's not part of the plot. He's just the guy who's hanging out while Angela comes in and out. Mm-hmm. And no, he's nothing. And I do think that that's how people guessed, because looking out, a lot of people did guess that Cal was Dr. Manhattan. And I would say that if you go by the evidence presented in the episode, you shouldn't be able to determine it. Like, Cal they specifically say that Dr. Manhattan can't disguise himself as other people. Cal, in private with Angela, says that Dr. Manhattan's on Mars and that he can't do that. And so, and they didn't reveal that Cal had amnesia and was in some accident until the episode that they reveal that Dr. Manhattan is Cal. So I think it was through that, like that kind of like outside of the narrative guess.
I think they revealed it actually that he had amnesia in episode 3 when Laurie Blake and Angela are talking. Episode 3 or 4, I forget which one, but I think it was briefly discussed. Briefly.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I don't remember it. So I mean, I was completely fooled. But I do think that you're right if you look outside and you say, oh, who are the major players in the cast? And you go down the list and you see Cal and you're like, what? He's not that major. You could maybe say, well, oh, maybe he's going to become major. And then that's the obvious go-to, that he's going to be Manhattan.
For me, the clues was not only on the like to explain a bit more in detail for the audience. So when I go into to wikipedia.org and I look up Watchmen, back then, now it's completely different. Now there's way more cast members, but back then there were 4 pictures you see: Angela, Judd, Laurie Blake, and Cal. For some reason, Cal is there, despite Wade and even Jeremy Irons being way more important than Cal. So why? Yeah. Not to mention, why does the 7 Cavalry all want her out of the way? Like, I don't understand, like, what everyone's fascination with Angela is, or even her grandfather's fascination with her is. Not to mention, it's just, this show kind of spoils itself in a way, because every episode is jam-packed with Easter eggs and just hidden meanings and little, like, aha moments. And there has to be a reason why Angela and Laurie are almost opposite of each other and almost alike in a lot of ways. I feel as though, for example, the comic begins with the murder of the comedian and, you know, the little blood splatter on his smiley face pin, right? Yeah. Same with Judd. And so, just like George Lucas says, it likes poetry, it rhymes. Like, the comic and this show is rhyming. So there has to be, just like in the comics, a relationship with Dr. Manhattan and someone in the cast. And there is no other person in the show who's a major female character besides Laurie and Angela. And Laurie is already Dr. Manhattan's ex. It can't be Lady True, so...
Yeah. I mean, it is true that Angela did have a weak connection to everything. Like, there's this question of why is Angela the center of everything?
She's the least interesting character.
Right. Why is and she's very interesting, but she's the least interesting character. You know, like I mean, she's fascinating, but compared to everybody else who all have these insane backstories.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Wade, Wade. Judd is a secret clan member, but at the same time,
he's Lady True. Lady True's crazy.
Oh my God.
like all of them. I mean.
Oh, and by the way, so someone messaged me this, and they're like, Carmine, you're never gonna believe how Watchmen set up that Cal was Dr. Manhattan like episodes ago. I'm like, go ahead, but what you got? So when Laurie Blake takes out her dildo, it's called Excalibur.
Yeah,
Excalibur.
You know
what? What the? Okay, that's clever. You got to give him that. That's clever.
Oh yeah, I mean there are hints, and so it's not from left field. Like, it's not just out of nowhere. There are hints, but there are so many strong things to the contrary. The fact that in the first episode we see Dr. Manhattan on Mars. Like, at first you have to be like, oh, well, he's on Mars, and that we've established that belief. And then you have Cal having no clue that Dr. Manhattan is on Earth. And so, like, those two things together, like, oh, he actually has amnesia, and Dr. Manhattan is inside his body with amnesia. Like, that's a you know, it's an impressive catch that people did, and people did guess it, and you know, bravo. I did not, just because, you know, in the narrative, it's just Cal is just kind of an idiot. I don't know if he's an idiot, but you know, he's just, you know, out of it. He's the secondary character to Angela, and I thought, you know, maybe that was the point. Like, she was this strong woman, and she had this, like, nurturing, stay-at-home dad kind of guy. I don't know, but I missed it. But some people got it. But it took some dismissing of evidence that was there.
And what's funny too is that yeah, he was on Mars, and we see video proof that he's on Mars, but at the same time, he can make clones of himself, or he can make duplicates of himself, right?
That's true. I mean, he can do anything. So it's tough when it's like, oh, well, when you have an omnipotent character, well, what rules apply to him? You know, he can do anything he wants.
Exactly. And Lori Blake, she goes to speak to Jane Crawford, Judd's wife, about her husband's death, but apparently she ends up guessing a lot of it. And Jane just doesn't give a fuck. She says, oh, well, you know, the original plan was to be, like, president, but now it's much bigger. And Lori's like, huh? And the trap door, that was hilarious. That was...
It is that it, like, sticks for a bit and doesn't fall. I thought maybe she was going to get out, but no, she gets caught.
So apparently, Lori is now being captured by the 7th Cavalry, and their plan, as revealed by Senator Joe Keane, he is the true bad guy of the series, reveals that their plan is to capture Manhattan to fight against white discrimination. Now, when he said it's tough to be a white man in America these days, I rolled my eyes so fucking hard. And this is one of those areas where I need to tread carefully, because it sounds for me to say, God, no, it's not. Because I truly believe that. I'm not being a social justice warrior or a quote-unquote libtard. It's just not. I would argue it's easier to rip on white people, which it kind of is. Like, 50 years ago, if a white guy wanted to wear dreadlocks, nobody would fucking say a thing. But now, like, everybody, you know, we had this conversation last time.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly people that believe that are like Joe Keane and think that it's tough to be white in America. And what they'll do is they don't understand the difference between an anecdote and a trend. Yes, you can find individual instances where it's difficult to be a white person, a white male. Sure. But over the whole trend of all of society and your lifetime, you have to say, well, did you have a good run? Yeah. I mean, I think it was Louis C.K. of all people. He made a joke about how, I mean, honestly, if you had to re-up on your race every year, like, would you?
I would choose white every time, of course.
Right. He's just like, yeah. Like, he chooses white every time. Like, nope, gotta do that again.
The joke was, if you were black and you had a time machine, anything before 1984, no thank you.
No thank you, right. Right, but, you know, right, but there's all these people that again, people in general, all people think they're persecuted. So there's a lot of people, you know, white people that think they're persecuted, you know, even though they're the majority, and, you know, Christians definitely think they're persecuted. I mean, all religions think they're persecuted. All people think they're persecuted, and white people are no exception. So it's just funnier with white people because, you know, they're not persecuted as much as everybody else.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I just rolled my eyes so hard. But okay, fine. You want to be Dr. Manhattan? Who the fuck doesn't want to be Dr. Manhattan? But okay, and I gotta say, I love when Lori the entire time she's like, "Oh God, please don't give me the villain speech, please." He gives it to her anyways. And before all this, by the way, Laura's partner Petey tracks down Looking Glass. Now, we haven't heard from Looking Glass in a couple of episodes because we see the 7th Cavalry heading to his house to go kill him, but instead they find Wade's fallout shelter filled with dead cavalry men, but no sign of him.
Yeah. How did they get into the fallout shelter?
They probably followed him in there and just bursted everything down. But Wade, being the badass,
and he didn't close the door. He didn't close and lock the door.
Maybe. And Wade, being the badass that he is, beat them all down. But we don't know where he is, though. So hopefully he comes in at the last moment. And
because that's the thing is Lady True thinks she's going to save the world, and you know we all have this feeling that Lady True is just as evil as Senator Keane.
Right.
Just in a different way. And I think that if we're going, the big clue that Lady True is evil, I mean, first of all, how she acted in that in that opening scene with the baby was atrocious.
Right.
And the things she's doing are pretty creepy and icky with regards to her daughter. But we know she's a villain because she's reading Ayn Rand, and like that's
Jesus.
and I'm not saying I'm talking about the creator and how and what he believes and the source material of the original Watchmen comic. You know, I don't personally agree with Ayn Rand either. I wouldn't say that someone that reads Ayn Rand is a villain, but I think that the creators of the show and certainly Alan Moore believe that people that believe Ayn Rand's teachings and ideas are evil.
Real quick,
And
as
so,
a recap,
yeah.
Ayn Rand, right? Or Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand.
Yeah.
Recap her teachings real quick for those who forgot.
She believes in an extreme version of individualism, where she actually believes that, unlike, say, even a libertarian who believes that the government shouldn't be helping people. It's fine for individuals to help people if they want, but the government shouldn't be doing it. Ayn Rand takes it a step further and actually says that all people, even in their personal life, should be just focused on their own personal success, and that helping other people is wrong. It leads to laziness and people not taking personal responsibility and stuff like that. She doesn't believe in government systems and things like that. She's also an atheist because she's just very much against anything organized.
And this is Rorschach's beliefs too, right?
Absolutely. Rorschach. And Rorschach was designed specifically by Alan Moore as an Ayn Rand believing trope extremist.
Mm-hmm.
Like that she was specifically in mind when he created the character. Yeah, I mean, she for example, wrote this story called The Fountainhead, where the government, tries to dismantle successful businesses, and leech off them, and all of society are just leeches, and these people have no motivation then to actually do their work, and so, even though the protagonist is an architect or something, like as if architecture is the most important thing in the world, but whatever. But yeah, so I think the whole thing with Ayn Rand, and that's why I thought Lady True was a clone as well, that she was just recreating herself over and over again, but apparently she's just recreating her mother right now. Maybe we're going to find out differently, but yeah.
And the other part of the episode is that Veidt is put on trial by the game warden and all the Crookshankses and Mr. Phillips, and he is pronounced guilty, and and he doesn't give a fuck. He's just very nonchalant about it. And I think they said something along the lines that trial went on for a year.
Yeah, they mentioned 365 or something certain days of the trial.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess he had to tolerate that for a long, long time. But we eventually we get back to his time. I mean, in the next episode, we find out exactly how long he's been on the planet again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's seven years.
And I love how the prosecutor is still calling him master.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
God.
so episode 7 was more about big shock reveals.
Right.
It didn't actually push the plot forward very much. I mean, yes, Laurie is captured. But other than that, not much happens other than big reveals.
Mm-hmm.
Who is Dr. Manhattan? What is the 7th Cavalry's plan? I don't know. What else?
Laurie is captured.
That Wade is alive.
Angela comes back. Lady True reveals her motives. 7th Cavalry reveals their motives.
There's the elephant. She finds the elephant.
Right,
right?
And the elephant, I don't even know what it means. All I know is that, correct me if I'm wrong, since you love to travel all over the world, I'm sure you've been to Vietnam. In Vietnam, don't they consider elephants kind of holy or something?
Sure, and the historic Lady True rode an elephant. I mean, elephants never forget. There might be a memory thing. Things. Who knows? But it's I don't know. It could mean a million things. Elephants mean a whole bunch of different stuff. So.
Well, the episode wasn't bad. I actually kind of liked it. The reveal was kind of spoiled for me because, and by the way, guys, don't take this as me shitting on you guys, but this is honestly, it's completely my fault. The reveal was kind of spoiled for me when a bunch of people hit me up on Instagram and Twitter, and they're like, Carmine, how did you know? How did you know that was really him? I'm like, what? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, God damn it. So
for me, I wasn't spoiled. So when the end of the episode happened, I was like, oh man. It was a big hit.
Right.
So I was like, wow, what a reveal.
Guys, feel free. I'm not ripping on you guys. Feel free to message me anytime you want. It's my fault for getting on social media and not watching the episode before doing that.
Like immediately at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock Central Time.
It takes a while for it to pop up on the website. I mean, HBO, go. No, this episode, I would give it an 8 out of 10. It was great. I really liked it. I thought it was awesome. Even though the reveal was a little spoiled for me, we still got a lot of reveals, but nothing was really answered exactly. There's still that aura of mystery there, which once again, that's Tolkien's #1 rule. Lord of the Rings, I'm bringing that in here. No Game of Thrones this time. Well, maybe give us a couple of minutes. Tolkien always believed that once you answer one question, you got to open up another one to keep that mystery in there.
Yes.
So we still don't know too much until the next episode, 8, where Dr. Manhattan tells us all. Before we go to episode 8, what would you give this episode on a scale from 1 to 10? I'll give it an 8.
I'll give it an 8 too, yeah. I mean, it's funny because, in retrospect, I'm like, it's one of the weaker episodes because they're all so strong. So it's like an 8 while the other ones are like 9s, 8s and 9s.
I would say episode 2 is the weakest.
Yeah, I would agree.
This might be the second weakest, but at the same time, it's still really good though. It's weird.
Yeah, it's still really good. It's just the bar is set so high by the Wade episode, the Laurie episode, so it's funny because the weakest episodes are the ones where they focus on the ensemble plot, and the strongest episodes are the ones where they focus on kind of one person and follow that person. So get that individual perspective on things. Yeah. But
let's jump into episode 8. A god walks into a bar. I swear to God.
A bar.
A bar. I swear to God, I thought it was a space bar. That's what when I looked at it like a couple weeks ago to see all the episodes, because you said it only had 9 episodes. I was like, what? So I looked it up, and I swear I saw a god walks into a bar, not a bar.
Well, in certain places it's been written both ways. So on HBO, when you click on the episode, it actually says space a bar. And then when you play the episode, it says a bar, and then somebody walks in front of the word a bar, and when they're done walking in front of it, it's now one word, a bar. And then the official name that I've seen listed places is a bar. But so it's definitely appearing in different places in the 2 different forms.
So here's the synopsis. Let's get through it real quick so we can discuss this. In Vietnam, 2009, Dr. Manhattan attempts to convince Angela to have dinner with him the next night, as they will fall in love later. Angela is highly skeptical, but Manhattan, after explaining his nonlinear experience with time, explains that he has been creating life on Europa since 1985, and that in 2019 he will fall in love with her just as he is about to be taken by the 7th Cavalry. He explains how he took up the identity of Cal to blend in, and used the device created by Veidt to give him amnesia about... But okay, I'm not gonna... This synopsis is going all over the place. Okay, so first off... Sorry about that, guys. So first off, let's start with...
the episode... So what's clever about the episode is that the episode is told in non-linear time.
Yes.
Like it jumps around time period-wise.
Very clever.
Which is, how Dr. Manhattan experiences life, right? It's very Slaughterhouse-5... kind of idea. Do you know Slaughterhouse-5?
I do not.
It's Kurt Vonnegut, and it's about a man who becomes unstuck in time and starts experiencing his life out of order. Of course, he's actually crazy, and having flashbacks. Like this is the whole point. But to him, he thinks he's and hallucinating and all of these different things from stuff he's read. So what he's experiencing out of order is a series of flashbacks and hallucinations. But that's the general premise, though, is what would happen to an individual if they had to live their life out of order. But I don't think it really makes sense. Like time travel never makes sense.
It doesn't.
What are you gonna do?
But is this really time travel though? This is all has already happened, and it's almost as though Manhattan has the script.
Well, it's
like he
funny
read the script.
because there's so many causation loops. So you're like, why is Angela part of the story? Well, Angela's part of the story because Dr. Manhattan made her part of the story.
Right.
And why did he make her part of the story? Because she was part of the story. Like, oh. And that's it. That's the only reason Angela is there. Like, is because Dr. Manhattan felt the need to go back in time to get her and talk to her. But the only reason he went back in time to talk to her was because she was part of his life in the first place. Mm-hmm. So it's just a big time causation loop. So there's no real explanation. But what are you supposed to do with a time travel person that knows everything? Like, doesn't make sense in the first place. So
but he can't travel through time. He can see through it. So.
But I think he can act on it. He can act on stuff knowing the future. But then he chooses, like, it's like, well, why did you do that when it was to your detriment? And then his excuse is, haven't you done something that you've known is going to be, haven't you done something you know you're going to regret?
Right,
like,
yeah.
I guess, but winning the Vietnam War, that's kind of a biggie.
And I gotta say, Dr. Manhattan is the worst person to be in a relationship ever. Because when they're... I think at one point during the dinner, he tells Angela that they're going to have a fight and she's going to tell him to leave. And that fight hasn't even happened yet.
Right.
And they're doing
it's
stuff.
Funny. It's funny because they establish, like, good as the episode is, I don't think they really ever establish why Angela would ever fall in love with Dr. Manhattan. Like, Angela is this hard-boiled, kind of tough woman. Mm-hmm. And then she meets this guy who's just talking fucking lunacy. Like, why should... They have one throwaway line where it's like, oh, in your unpredictable life, you enjoyed a bit of predictability. And you're like, okay, I guess. But honestly, like, Dr. Manhattan is... He's crazy and psychotic and a-emotional. It's just, like, he's not a good person to be in a relationship with. Why would people be in a relationship with him? I don't know. I guess maybe because he's a god. I don't know. But
to be honest, I can kind of understand that. The predictability thing. Personally, I could never be with someone who was incredibly unpredictable. I don't like that. That makes me feel uncomfortable. And I understand the comfort in being able to, like, know that this person's either going to fuck me over or be with me forever. Like, it may be boring to some people, but at the same time, it's just... The whole unpredictability thing, it makes me anxious. I just don't like having to guess what my partner's next move is going to be, whether it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. So I get the comfort in it. But he is just the worst person to be in a relationship with, because I never realized this. But it makes a lot of sense. When they're having sex, I feel like though she knows better than to ask him this, but she asks him anyway, where are you right now? Right. Oh, we're at the bar. We're at the bar.
Just like, well, because Laurie Blake does that in the original Watchmen comic.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Jesus. Where are you right now?
She's having sex with him, and he's like, one of him is in the lab, like, doing experiments.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, God. Okay.
We're at the bar right now, and we know that one time we went over there. I'm over there right now too.
I mean, people get into relationships for all sorts of reasons. So maybe it's a rock star thing. But he would just be the worst person to be in a relationship with. Like, you'd come home after a day, and you're like, "How was your day?" Like, what is he gonna say? Like, well, I was traveling through space time, like living my life out of order. Like, what?
We're gonna have a fight.
No, we're not. What'd you do at the office? I had to file reports. Like, oh, okay.
I know.
What?
I know you had to file reports. You told me already.
I saw the implosion of a quasar yesterday. Like, what? Like,
We're gonna have a fight in a minute. No, we're not. Stop saying that. Yes, we are. We're gonna have a fight.
no, I mean, there's only in the sense that, like, you're fucking a rock star. Would you want to? But then even then, you know, when he becomes amnesia guy, it's like, okay, yeah, Cal's hot, but
So apparently that was Angela's plan. So obviously they can't be walking around with the giant blue guy that freaking, because he's tall. But Dr. Manhattan's tall as fuck. They can't be walking around with the giant blue guy that glows. So, you know, they go to the morgue and they pick out a couple of candidates, but they ultimately settle on Cal. Now, he can look like Cal, which is cool, but at the same time, it's the personality's not there. Like he can't act like a person, which is, you know, at first I'm sure she thought she could be cool with it, but after a while it's a little
yeah, I mean, so there's one thing I don't understand. I noticed that Cal's last name was something else, like Jenkins.
something like that.
How does his name become Abar? Does he take Angela's surname?
I guess. I have no idea.
I just don't get it. Like, I don't. Yeah, his name was Cal Jelani.
Yeah, something like that. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, does he take her last name? I don't understand it.
Oh,
Like, if she's stealing identities, like, why wouldn't he stay with Jelani?
I guess in countries like Vietnam, and this is like that in my country of Brazil too. When you have like no family, like nobody really gives a fuck, nobody really pays attention, you know. So it's whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, when people meet them, they're gonna see Abar and they're gonna be like, well, neither one of them have next of kin, whatever. It doesn't matter. But it was just an odd thing.
Mm-hmm. And before we move on into this, during the dinner or during their first meeting ever, Dr. Manhattan basically pulls out of his ass a huge plot device or plot information that he can transfer his powers to people.
Yeah, and then with the egg and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I love how this is ultimately answered later on because he creates the egg.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is the time causation loop, chicken or the egg.
Right. Yeah. So, God, I love this episode. I want to give it a 10 out of 10 because I know we're not at the very end yet, but I gotta say, the reason I would have to give this episode a 10 out of 10 is because Dr. Manhattan is such a fun character. Not only is he hilarious, but he's so fun. Like, I'm sure in the writer's room, they had so much fun with all the stuff he could do, you know?
Yeah, now, I will say that, so I've read a lot of different sci-fi and fantasy that involve omnipotent beings. Marvel Universe has a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. And there's always a problem, you know, like, well, once a character is omnipotent, like, and they can do everything, how do you create a plot? Like, how do you create a barrier for someone that's omnipotent? Because, you know, our story structure is usually that there's a problem that the protagonist has to overcome.
Right.
Well, what can you do if the character is omnipotent? And so then they have to, like, scale something back. They have to take the powers away, or someone has to become even more omnipotent, and then you get this kind of, you know, Marvel Universe escalation of powers, you know, where on, like, galactic and universe and multiverse scales and stuff like that. So, you know, it was fun, like, what they were doing with Manhattan, going out of time and getting involved with Veidt. But yes, his whole choosing to bottle up his powers, like, he has to, because there's nothing you can do with an omnipotent character. Like, it's just, you're at a dead end. Once the character's omnipotent and unstoppable, you're at a dead end. So.
And that was clever. We'll get into what Veidt and he did in Antarctica in a minute, but the way you do that in a television show like this is you introduce him second to last episode, because you, like, this is where The Force Awakens really just didn't know how to, like, handle characters who are incredibly strong but very prominent. because the whole time watching Force Awakens, I'm like, oh, it's Luke, it's Han and Leia. Where's Luke? Oh God, when Luke gets in here, oh, you're all gonna be sorry.
Yeah.
And they just really, personally, I think they handled Luke very badly in Last Jedi, and I think for a character that powerful, with that in regards to Dr. Manhattan, I think HBO's Watchmen, handled it perfectly. They had him come in second to last episode, and yeah, even though he's Dr. Manhattan has been in the back of our heads the entire show, but he's not been a focus of it.
Also, what's cool about this episode is now, you know, the first time we had to have stakes that were, I mean, in the comic book, the stakes were nuclear war, and so you need something where the stakes are as big as nuclear war, and like they chose something, you know, the established thing was race, and that was a problem that's certainly as pressing that we feel in our minds as nuclear war. But when it comes down to it, like race relations, we're not talking about the annihilation of every human being and all life on the planet like nuclear war. They escalated it now. When you're talking about someone getting the powers of Dr. Manhattan, you're now talking about something as big as nuclear war. Like, oh, you're trying to make a white supremacist omnipotent. Oh, like that's the high stakes are there now. You know, we're on the level of the original Watchmen comic.
Yeah, and like I said, this is how you do it. This is how you handle a character that powerful. Yeah, it's a really fun way to do it. It's a clever way to do it. That's why I got to give the show props. Like, they did it very, very well. And, you know, Rian Johnson, take fucking notes, bro. They did it very well. But, okay, so we're jumping all over the place, just like the episode. So Angela just can't take Dr. Manhattan being so Dr. Manhattan. She asks him to leave, and he does. He teleports to Adrian Veidt's Fortress of Solitude in Antarctica. And we find out that Adrian, since the giant squid fall thing that's been going on, he's been actively, like, dropping squids all over the place, just like we saw in episode 1.
Right, but who's been doing it, you know, since his departure?
I'm assuming he probably built a machine to do it every now and then.
Or maybe he's had Lady True do it or something?
Maybe, yeah. And he's really...
But what's weird is he gets warped to Europa without any warning. So it's not like he could have had it set up.
True. Maybe, yeah.
I mean, it might be that the U.S. government felt that they needed to be done, and they started doing it, but he, you know, he didn't have any time. It's not like Dr. Manhattan said, like, okay, you got 30 minutes to, like, pack your shit.
Yeah, he just
like,
sends him.
He just sends him there. Like, you know, hope you don't have any plants that need watering, you know, like.
And it's funny too, because Adrian is upset with how things are progressing, because according to what he said, he's given the world a means to move past the whole nuclear thing with wind and solar and all this stuff, and they just won't do it, and he's really upset about that.
Yeah.
So Cal / Dr. Manhattan shows up, and Adrian reveals a plan to get Cal to kind of... originally it was his plan A on how to defeat Dr. Manhattan, beyond beyond the plan that we saw in the comics / the movie, to kill him.
Yeah.
And the plan is to implant this little device that looks like his atom symbol into his head that will essentially give him amnesia. His powers will be dormant.
Yeah.
And as a thank you, he sends Adrian to Europa, where Dr. Manhattan went and created life. And he literally created these the first Philip and the first Crookshanks after these two people he met when he was in England, escaping from World War II. And
yes,
we originally thought, I think it was your idea, that they were a part of him somehow, like he created them in his image or something like that. Oh,
right, but it turns out it's not.
It's not, and I thought this was super sweet. He created, what was it, the idea of perfection, or the idea of I forgot what he said, but he created the first man and woman in heaven, essentially, after these two people he met when he was super young. That's so sweet. That's so, like, thoughtful as fuck. Like, holy shit.
It's also, you know how we made the, this was in my rant about people making a big deal about his nudity. And I started talking about Ellen Moore's beliefs about like sex versus violence and stuff like that. And it's interesting that like those two characters like sat him down and was like and told Dr. Manhattan like sex is nothing to be ashamed about. It's like a wonderful thing. We were creating a child and da 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 da. Like they gave him this like positive idea of sex,
Right.
Which is very Alan Moore, so the utopia that he's created is, with those characters who seemed like, great people. He creates this like, perfect society.
He creates the perfect society with these two people, and he also creates that primordial lake and all this stuff, and even the mansion is designed after theirs, and it was really sweet. I really loved that. In his mind, Mr. Phillips and Miss Crookshanks, they're like the ideal people that he really wants, walking about. However, he kind of got bored with them. All they wanted to do was just love and please him, and he didn't care about that. It just felt unfulfilling for him. So he leaves them there, and but he also sends Adrian there because in his view that's heaven, and Adrian should be okay. And at first Adrian's like, okay, let's go, let's do it. But in time, as we see, Adrian is also kind of bored with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's they're getting to the heart of who Veidt is as a person. Like Veidt believes himself to be this caring individual that wants to like help society, but they're saying, well, no, in the end, you wanted credit, and you're never going to get credit. You're never going to see utopia. No one's ever going to say thank you, Adrian. And so he thinks that maybe he wants some credit, and then he goes to a planet where everybody just worships him, and he's like, no, like this isn't what I want either. I want a challenge.
Yeah.
Adrian Veidt wants to struggle, and I think that's like part of it.
A man like him, oh god, yeah. There's no way, like a guy like that who is the world's smartest person, who considers Alexander the Great his equal, the only person that ever existed to be his equal. No, he needs a challenge, and heaven is too boring for him. Which there's something fucking awesome about that. It's too tame for him. He needs something of a challenge, but at the same time, he's so much older now.
Yeah, it's true, but he still had some adventures on that planet.
That's true.
7 years.
By the way, to mention Star Wars again, and to a theory you had earlier. So that episode where Lady True goes and buys that farm, and when we see the thing coming out from space, you thought that was Adrian, right?
Yeah, that's an idea. Yeah.
So
So he goes off, and so what we do know is that in 2009, he goes to Europa.
Right.
And we know that 7 years have now passed on Europa. There's 7 candles in his cake at the end of the last episode. He still needs to escape. I'm guessing it's going to take him a year to dig out of that room.
Right.
Just because that's how the structure of the story has been going, is that every event is in a year. So it looks like in the year 20... If it's 8 years, in the year 2017, he's going to escape. When did Lady True find the object when did she buy the land?
So here's what I'm thinking, that might have been a flashback, or maybe not a flashback at all, because I remember reading an article, I think it was on your favorite website, cracked.com, that states that Luke and Leia, despite being twins, I think Leia might be younger or older than Luke. I forgot what it was, because she's been traveling around. Luke's always been on Tatooine, and she's been traveling around all over the place, and light speed, I believe, slows down the aging like while you're in light speed, you're not aging as fast. Not to mention, every planet should have different rotation. Like, have you ever seen Matthew McConaughey was in it? It was it's the Matthew McConaughey. It was a great film by the guy who made The Dark Knight. What's the name of it? It's called not Magic Mike, not that. Interstellar.
Interstellar,
right.
Yes.
And Interstellar, he's on that one planet, and it's like he's on that planet for like a day, but it's like 20 years on Earth.
So yes, you're right that the days might not be the
Right.
same
So when don't you think like
on
you
your.
would age differently on Europa versus Earth? Like wouldn't like the rotation be a little different?
I mean, that's true as well, but I'd still like to know when she arrived at that, when she arrived on that at that farm to start her clock tower plan.
Well, to be fair, man, I mean, he might have escaped within those 7 years, but how long did it take for him to reach Europa to Earth? Could have taken him a
Well,
long time.
but that's the thing. Like, I don't know how he's gonna do it. So if next episode he escapes the prison, and it's now been 8 years, and so he has 2 years to get back to Earth just to affect the stuff that's happening right now. But we're kind of thinking that perhaps he got back earlier and has some other stuff going on. I don't know. Like, is there enough time for him to be the thing falling out of the sky?
Maybe. I do like the idea that he's been he's around the entire time, watching everything unfold, preparing for something. I do like that idea.
I'm trying to find where did they give the year of when she buys the farm?
I don't think so. I don't remember that.
Okay.
We would have discussed that. So yeah,
Okay.
so Adrian gives Dr. Manhattan / Cal the little device, and they put it in his head, and he has amnesia. However, here's the thing. During the White Knight attack, Angela's about to be killed, and we see that Cal, with reflexes, like Adrian said, his reflexes at a dire moments would come out, and his powers would, awaken to save Angela. For a brief moment, he saved her with his laser beam. And I think this is how the 7th Cavalry figured out that, that was him. Because in the first episode, I believe Judd said something along the lines of, like, he saw something extraordinary that night. I think that's what it was. And I believe that Judd, if a part of the 7th Cavalry, was probably there at Angela's house, and he probably saw Dr. Manhattan or Cal awaken those powers to save her.
Yeah, I mean, so Cal, so I thought they were going to see a big glowy dude, but he said he just warped the guy away.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, I think he said he warped him away. And so if you are that guy and you get warped away, and you got to figure like, okay, who has the power to do that? Well, Dr. Manhattan has the power to do that.
Did he warp him away, or did he laser beam him? Because if he warped him away, then that person could have been Judd.
I do think that person was Judd.
Which would explain why he's so fucking close to Angela.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, why would he be so close to her in regards to everybody else?
And he like chooses to befriend her so that he can examine Cal like firsthand.
Yeah. Keep an eye on him.
Get to know him, get to know how weird he is. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Get to know everything.
Interesting. But so Cal and Angela have been living together for 10 years now, and apparently he always knew that their relationship would end in tragedy. And I love the line that she says, or I think he said, she said something along the lines of, I watched it a couple days ago. She said something along the lines of, "Oh, it ends in tragedy, huh?" And he says something along the lines of, "Yeah, doesn't every relationship end in tragedy?" And he's so right. I love that line. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
It's so true. Whether you break up or not.
That is a great line. That's a great line. I remember, and it goes back to Louis C.K. again. He once says that relationships, best case scenario, you grow old and your best friend dies, and then you walk around like a miserable fuck. And I was like, oh God, that's your best case scenario.
Unless you both die together. I mean, I've seen articles.
You have to die simultaneously, but yeah, that's But
I've seen articles where older couples, they one dies and the other one dies soon after, like heartbreak or whatever. So essentially, you're kind of dying together.
I mean, some people say like, oh, isn't it best to die first? And you're like, well, then you're cursing the other person to walk around like a miserable fuck. Like, so that's the best case scenario is that you live a long time, your best friend dies, and then you walk around like a sad fuck.
Yeah.
That's all relationships end in tragedy. I'd say that's a genius line, like popped into that episode.
So at least 2/3 of the episode is, Dr. Manhattan essentially explaining to Angela and the audience everything that's been going on and is about to happen. And towards the last leg of the episode, we get to the end of episode 7, where Angela reawakens Manhattan, and he's just confused. He doesn't know where he is. He's doing this, this, and this. He teleports the kids away. He's walking on top of the pool, blah, 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 blah. He's making breakfast, I guess, or food, whatever. And then we find out that it was Angela who put the idea in Will's head, because before Manhattan put the thing in his head to forget everything, he spoke to Will.
Yeah.
And this is the fucking loop. Like, this is the whole loop thing. Like, what?
Right. Now, but this gets into a whole bunch of other contradictions and stuff, because the problem with the whole character of Dr. Manhattan is that if he's living life and time out of order,
right,
he must know either when he dies or when he's destroyed, or he just knows everything. Mm-hmm. So if he knows everything, like, how can there ever be any problems? Like, and this goes back to even the original Watchmen comic. Like, they try to say, oh, he's got these tachyon fields to like make it so he's hiding what's happening. But the problem is that, like, it doesn't matter, because the tachyon field will eventually stop, and then, or there are events outside of the tachyon field that Dr. Manhattan can view to determine what's going to happen. Like, there's, even in the original Watchmen comic, like, he should know that there was a big squid landing on New York City. Like, it's just, he should have known that. And even if you said, oh, but he put a tachyon field around that squid, it doesn't matter, because he can look a year later into the future and see all of the people talking about the squid and figure out that there is a squid. So time travel never makes any sense, and Dr. Manhattan doesn't really make any sense to begin with. But I do wonder if the show is going to try to retcon, explain how, Dr. Manhattan's actions in the original Watchmen comic, or if it's just going to have holes in it, because time travel always has holes in it.
What I don't understand is, if he knows all this is going to happen, why doesn't he just teleport away? Like, if he knows at the end of this night he's going to be captured and possibly destroyed, why doesn't he just teleport out?
There's so many things, like why does he stand right there and like smile at her while the ray hits him? Like, this is just stupid. Like, if you're smiling, you know that the guy is behind you, so explode his head. Like, it's not that hard. Like, you see time, I don't know, unless that's the last moment of his life that he sees and he really dies at that moment. I don't know.
But he can change this. If he can see the future, why doesn't he change it? There's one line he says to Laurie Blake, and I believe Watchmen, and I think he says something along the lines of, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're all puppets. The only difference is I can see the strings.
I can see the strings, right.
No, if you can, then why the fuck aren't you, like, doing something different? Like, if you can see that you're gonna, like, if you can see in the future that you're gonna be punched in the face, why don't you dodge? Why do you let it happen? Like, just because time, like, flows this way, and you can change it, just don't teleport away. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everything's a paradox. We can't actually explain.
He's like a slave to time. He's like a slave to fate.
Right, but only specific things, right? Like, only things that he wants to, right? Like, she keeps saying, "Oh, you're not going to tell me that." No, I'm not. Oh, but you're going to tell me something else? Like, why? Like, why not, like, when he first meets her, say, okay, the night there's going to be some cavalry people, they're going to come, but if you take me out, I can teleport you away, and then we don't have to deal with them. We can just, I mean, they arrived at his house with that gun. Okay, like, teleport 4 blocks away. Not that hard. Teleport to fucking Europa. It doesn't matter. Just don't be at the fucking house. Don't walk outside, kill all of them except for one, and then stand there and smile as a gun hits you on the back. It's silly, but of course it's silly in the original Watchmen comic. Like, we got to go to Antarctica to stop Adrian Veidt, but I already know about time. Like, I already know what's going to happen. So what's the point?
Whatever, man. And I gotta say, he was never, So this is where like I'm like mind fucked. So he even comes to the conclusion when she says, "Damn it, did I put the idea in his head?" Because she's essentially talking to Will from the future to the past, which is
Right.
crazy. Awesome, I love that. And he has like an epiphany. Oh, they both came first, the chicken and the egg.
Right.
So fucking cool. I love that. But what what doesn't make any sense to me is I'm not even getting into it anymore. I will say I love it. I love it because it mind fucks you. So he
It does. I mean, it's really playing around with what Dr. Manhattan is and what it must like to be him. Because maybe the point of it all is just as we're confused, Dr. Manhattan must get confused. And Dr. Manhattan even says he's confused at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him saying, like, I'm confused. And I was like, oh, I think we forget that even though Dr. Manhattan has infinite powers, he's still not perfect and he can still mess up and he's not necessarily completely with
Mm-hmm.
it. And we just have to accept that he's kind of an idiot sometimes. Maybe all the time.
But I love the mindfuck here is that he's always been in love with her because he can see the future and experience the future. But at the same time, in that moment in that episode, he fell in love with her because she tries to
At the
very
very
end because she tries to change the course of events for his sake.
Yeah. He falls in love with her for the last action she does, but he's been in love with her the entire time.
Right.
Okay.
But couldn't Laurie Blake as Silk Spectre do the same thing? Wouldn't have she done the same thing in Angela's position? Wouldn't most people do the same thing in Angela's position? If your lover was going to tell you that, hey, look, these guys are coming and killing me, wouldn't most people's loved ones try to stop that?
Sure. Yeah.
So why Angela? I just
I mean, I don't know.
why her in specific?
I mean, in a sense, like it is kind of a huge coincidence that that Hooded Justice's daughter, her granddaughter, ends up in a relationship with Dr. Manhattan. But then it's not really a coincidence because it's all through a big causation loop. So, like, how did Hooded Justice find out about Cyclops' plan, and how does it all tie together? Well, it all ties together because Dr. Manhattan ties it together in a big causation loop and paradox. Like, there's no reason, actually, for all of these characters to be connected, but they are.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. And this episode was incredibly frustrating, but not frustrating in a bad way. Like, it was a fun episode. And the things the writers could do with Dr. Manhattan, like just him like teleporting, walking on the pool, making breakfast, making things levitate.
Yeah, why did he go to the pool to walk on it?
To test his powers? I don't...
That kind of lost me. I was like, why did he go to the backyard?
I guess the kids need to see him.
Know. Didn't he say something like that? I needed you to see me like this? Like, why?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. You can walk on water? She does ask about him walking on water when they first meet. I don't know. Maybe there's a big Grand Master Dr. Manhattan plan. But I don't know. I kind of think that... I'm kind of guessing that... I wonder if Angela's going to get the Dr. Manhattan power in the end. Like, I feel like... something's going to go wrong and somebody's going to end up as Dr. Manhattan.
Or having his
Somebody
powers,
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, will Angela end up as Dr. Manhattan?
I wonder, yeah, because, Yeah, that could be a possibility, too. Overall, I would give the episode a 10 out of 10. I loved it. I thought it was fun. It was great. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. It was really interesting. My favorite part of the episode is when he's literally created an Eden for these people. I love that part.
Yeah. It was a really fun episode, especially the after the credits with
Adrian?
I did think the final scene with Adrian Veidt was interesting because you find out that the game warden is actually rather thoughtful individual.
He's the first Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, you kind of thought that Mr. Phillips are idiots, but actually the game warden is rather intelligent and refined. Like, he's thought about things, and he seems bitter that Dr. Manhattan left, which is obviously, a kind of reaction to people today. Like, God, if there is a God and he created the world, why isn't he doing miracles anymore?
Mm-hmm.
And why has he abandoned us? So
yeah, I like that thought that he got bored, that everybody, all they wanted to do was just give him love and show him affection and all that stuff, and it's not fulfilling. Nah.
Yeah. So I do think that Veidt is going to spend a year trying to dig out, and then I don't know how he's going to escape then.
I would love it. And he spends a year trying to dig out. When he finally digs out, there is all the Mr. Phillips and Crookshanks is there with another cake with another candle on it.
Well, say it takes 2 years. Say it takes 2 years for the trip of the ship, and the ship arrives, and then he jumps in the ship, and it takes 2 years to get back. Then he arrives just at the at the action, but you'd have to get out faster if it's all for Lady True's. If he's the thing landing in Lady True's field. I
thought it was really weird that even though Manhattan, he normally doesn't look like Cal, but he had like Cal's like facial features and the shape of his head was there, and it's like Dr. John Osterman is like a white guy, and
they even make a joke about, or Adrian Veidt makes a joke about that. It's like, you better not be doing appropriation. I do like how Veidt still dresses like it's the 80s in that scene, because he hasn't really left his Antarctic base since the 80s, so he's still dressed like the 80s. The theory that I have is that, okay, Adrian Veidt, he put himself in like a carbonite freeze when he got into the ship, and that Lady True, that is Ozymandias, that statue is Ozymandias in like a carbonite freeze, and that she's gonna thaw him when she succeeds.
Interesting. Wow, we've mentioned Han Solo and Louis C.K. so many times. Yeah, no Game of Thrones.
Oh God, yeah.
There you go, guys. Y'all can stop bitching now. By the way, the one thing I'm really worried about is season 2, because I feel as though, and I'm taking this quote from you, I feel as though they're blowing their entire load on season 1, and there's not gonna be nothing for season 2. Just like with Westworld. Westworld season 1 was awesome, and we get to season 2, it's just contrived like crap.
Yeah. Well, how can you outdo yourself? Yeah. I mean, there probably will be a season 2, just because the ratings are picking up. So people were worried about the ratings for a while because they dropped off, and now they've picked up, and it's getting so much acclaim that I feel like there's going to be a season 2.
Honestly, this shouldn't go past season 3. Season 3 should be the final season. This really shouldn't go. If they can manage to make an incredibly awesome season 1, they should be able to do something with season 2, and then season 3 should be the final thing where they go balls out.
I mean, I can tell you, season 2, you got to do the owl, right?
Yeah.
Like, you got to bring in the owl, and then who knows? But I'm telling you right there, that's season 2.
Well, if season 1, the 7th Cavalry are the bad guys, then season 2, Lady True has to be the villain.
I think she's the villain this season too. I don't know if she's going to make it. I think she's going to try to steal the power too, or something.
Interesting. Or maybe she wants her father to inherit the power, because Angela in episode 7 was like, "Well, where's your dad?" And she goes, "He's coming. He's coming."
Right. I mean, I think the least original thing would be Ozymandias is her dad. He's in that carbonite, and she's going to thaw him for what she thinks is her success.
Ozymandias is her dad. That's a good one. I like that.
Right, because she says the dad's coming. Well, who's coming? We don't have any other characters. So even though she doesn't look half Asian at all, let's just make her half Asian. So.
Preston. And we still don't know the biggest mystery of the show is, who the fuck is Lube Man?
Who is Lube Man? That's season 3 right there. So season 2 is the owl. Season 3, Lube Man. Lube Man's Petey. It's got to be Petey.
It's such a lame...
Lube Man is Petey, and then first off, I feel like that Petey Lube Man and Looking Glass have to save the day and defeat Lady True. So I feel like Senator Keene, he's gonna get blown up. Like he's totally not gonna be Dr. Manhattan. He's just gonna get killed.
And it's weird too because you can't test that on anybody because you can't have two Manhattans walking around.
Right. Or maybe his thing gets blown up by Lady True. Lady True stops him, and then she wants to take the power for herself. And then who's gonna stop Lady True? Lube Man and Looking Glass.
What do you think Lady True's plan is? Do you think she wants to destroy the United States?
I think she wants to...
For the atrocities committed in Vietnam? That would be the ultimate, fuck you thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think she wants to stop cultural appropriation. I think that's a big thing.
Honestly, bro, that sounds like the most lame. That sounds incredibly lame.
I know.
So more lame than Senator Keene saying it's hard to be a white guy in America.
Right. She doesn't want Vietnamese culture to be taken over by American culture and stuff like that. And she wants, and I think that's part of it. I think it has something to do with that. It sounds really lame, but that's just the feeling I have. That it has something to do with that. Maybe she's going to use the mind control ray, broadcast it around the world.
Yeah, interesting. That could be it. That's why she teamed up with Will. So there are two major. I would say there are 3 or 4 major questions. Who is Lube Man? That's number 1. Number 2 is what is Lady True and Will's plan? And I believe number 3 would be. Fuck, I just had it.
Where's Ozymandias? I think he's inside that statue.
That's an interesting one. I like that because they do call attention to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, why does he look old? Something lands in the field. I'm sure that it's him coming back, landing in the field. He's in carbonite, and he's going to get thawed out for right before the end.
Mm-hmm. Preston, I would give this episode a 10 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was amazing. Great pacing. Acting was pretty good. Manhattan was just a fun character, and I really enjoyed the episode. I thought it was amazing. Yeah. This is an episode I would watch multiple times. Your rating?
I would give it 9 out of 10. Mm-hmm. I would say that it was super fun, super clever idea to frame the episode in the same way that Dr. Manhattan lives life. Super ambitious to try to go into the psyche of an omnipotent man who lives time out of order. On that front, I thought that the only weaknesses was that I didn't really feel Angela had a good reason to fall in love with Dr. Manhattan. I didn't believe their love. But it's still a fantastic fucking episode.
Of course, yeah,
that's
of course.
why I say 9 out of 10. But I would say that I wouldn't give it the 10 out of 10 only because I just didn't believe the love. Mm-hmm. I just didn't believe that she would fall in love with Dr. Manhattan.
Like I said, I can completely understand that, and not to mention the whole predictability thing. Some people are just more comfortable with that. Like me, I'm comfortable with being able to predict that this and this is gonna go down, and that's what I like. When I was younger, I was always used to watch the same DVDs and VHSs over and over and over again, and my mom was always like, "What? Why do you always watch that? You know what's gonna happen?" I'm like, I just like it.
But the problem is they just kind of they jump from her first meeting with Dr. Manhattan, where she's entertained that he's such a fucking loon. Mm-hmm. Then they jump to her thawing Dr. Manhattan, giving Dr. Manhattan the new body, and then they jump to 6 months. So we never even have one scene of them working as a couple. We have her working as a couple with Cal,
right?
Like Amnesia Cal, but we never see how during that 6 months of their relationship, why she would like hanging out with Dr. Manhattan. Maybe that next dinner, he takes her to the Crab Nebula. I don't know. and she's wowed by it. But, show me that. I just didn't have
I think
that.
You were correct. There is somewhat of a romantic thing about, not romantic, but something of a thrill being able to be with someone who's kind of like a rock star, he chose me of all people. This godlike being chose me. Maybe there's something there. That's where
Yeah.
I come to terms with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it like it can't logically get there. I just would have liked at least one little scene, showing it.
Preston, the show is great. I think it might be
It's
my
great.
favorite show of the year so far. I really, truly enjoy it. It's sad, and I'm gonna break it. It's sad that this is so far better than Game of Thrones. It's insane. It's fucking insane. But there it is. There it is. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and so many people were like, "Oh, this isn't going to come together because it's Lindelof and he messed up with Lost." And I was like, "Well, I have faith in him after seeing
Leftovers.
The Leftovers, And I was like, "Okay, he learned. He learned from his mistakes, and he got better. And he's really becoming a master of his
oh
craft."
yeah. Oh fuck yeah. Watchmen is absolutely fantastic. I really enjoy it. And yeah, I'm excited for the last episode, and I'm also sad for the last episode too, because I don't want it to end. But at the same time, I'm glad they're not, overstaying their welcome.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the whole thing has been packed.
Yes, it has. Guys, join us next time for the next episode, the final episode of Watchmen, and then we'll do a final season review and all that stuff. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.